So I recently got a comment saying my abstract art is just throwing around paint. But there's actually a lot more to it. In this video, I'll take you through my art journey from early doodles, realism, to my now abstract art. So if you're passionate about art and curious about the creative process, stick around, you'll like this video. So like most of you creatives out there, my art journey started pretty early on. So as long as I can remember, I was constantly doodling in the corners of my textbook, in the margins, and even on napkins. I also remember playing around with polymer clay as well, creating these like miniature sculptures of families. This is a picture found on Etsy, not by me, because I don't have pictures of what I made when I was very little, but it was pretty similar. It was like this without the body, just the face, but I had more details on the face, maybe something like this. And shout out to any Koreans or any Asian creatives out here. If you remember these origami star papers, just leave it in the comments. They were so huge back in the 2010s, and I was obsessed with these. I was constantly making these just for the sake of hoarding them, and sometimes also giving out to friends and family that I really love. I also made origami cranes a lot as well. I think I still have a box full of these back at home. So my love for art and just creating stuff started pretty early on. Now I'm grown up a little bit and I am in my realism phase. I really do believe that mastering your techniques and detail in rendering something realistic is necessary to build a solid foundation in your art. So naturally, during this phase, I was obsessed with details and technique. I just loved drawing portraits with my tiny mechanical pencil. And I lost track of my time doing this, and I basically was in love. These are some examples I have earliest from middle school to high school. I found external validation in making realistic artworks as well. People were always commenting, coming up to me saying, wow, your art looks so good. It looks so real. People that I wasn't really close to came over to my desk and they were kind of oozing over my art. So at this point, the main purpose of my art was personal satisfaction of perfecting my craft. Now, moving on to college. I got into Cornell University as a fine arts major, and I was thrilled for this opportunity. So until my first year in college, I was still going strong in my realism game. Here is a painting of a still from Life of Pi that I made in the first semester of college that I am still proud of to this day. However, things started shifting pretty quickly. I don't know about any other art schools, but from my personal experience, the art that Cornell taught us was very heavily based on conceptual art and contemporary art. Now, if you're familiar with contemporary art and enjoy going to galleries, you might be familiar. But for those of you who aren't, conceptual art is kind of the art that people go, that? Art? I could do that. So naturally, I also felt like conceptual art was very difficult to grasp. So I was very confused, just like many other freshmen in college. I really didn't know what I wanted to say through my art and how I would express it either. So naturally, my confidence started to drop. Everything really had to have a reason. If you wanted to make a realistic painting, I made this because I like being good at it, is just not good enough of a reason to make it. I persevered and kept on going though, and I finally got the hang of it by my third year in college. These are some of the works I made as a junior and senior in college. And as you may be able to tell by how sort of dark they were conceptual and abstract artworks that had to do with the traumatic experience I went through. Although this was probably the toughest time I had in my art career, I think the growth pain was definitely necessary to pull myself out of my comfort zone and understand the art that artists make nowadays, and teaching me how to find meaning beyond just technique. Now, although I learned a lot in college, I dropped my paintbrush as soon as I graduated. I was still painting here and there, but nothing consistent. It wasn't until last year, 2023 in November, that I started painting again. And the reason was pretty simple. I was newly married and had some empty white walls to decorate. I was searching on the internet for the perfect wall decor, and then I thought, right, I'm a painter, I could paint one myself. So I went to the nearest art supply store and got some very basic art supplies. Nothing too fancy because I didn't know how long this phase would last. I started simply by drawing portraits again in my little sketchbook, some objects that were laying around in the house, to eventually find a subject that I ended up sticking around to for a while. And that was flowers. It was less about the subject matter itself, but more about how I could draw and paint these flowers. So I mentioned earlier in this video that I loved doodling as a kid. Now, I had a very abstract approach to painting these flowers, just like how I was scribbling, making marks on the corners of my textbooks. And I just absolutely fell in love with this process. It was fun and loose, and I really loved the beautiful and interesting textures this was creating. So painting these flowers was just like a fresh of breath air. Just like a breath of fresh air. It really did remind me of the joy of creativity all over again. Here are some of the artworks I made at the time. And by the way, if you're interested in any of these artworks, I will have my Etsy shop linked below. And I also have a special 15% discount code for you. And I'll leave a link for that in the description box as well. So I really experimented with this subject and my approach for a while until I felt a bit constrained by the subject matter. I felt the constant need to stick to flowers just because you need to have a series of artworks. You need to be consistent. But I needed a better way to express myself beyond the subject of flowers. So I needed to find a way to better express the spirit I had inside of me. And this was how I moved on to my Was, Is, and Can Be series. A series of abstract artworks where I focus more on letting go of what to paint and responding a little bit more of what is present and what is laying in front of my eyes. So how I did this was, before having a solid image in mind or a solid idea of what I wanted to paint, I picked the nearest color I have on my table and mixed it with a lot of water intentionally and poured it onto the canvas. After the first layer of paint, I pour on a second layer of paint with the color that the artwork itself seems to be calling. Now, the intention of using a lot of water to the paint was so that the end product looks more organic. I repeat this process over and over until the painting seems finished. Now, this process really humbled me, as life does to oneself. For a long time, I really did believe that life revolved around me, that I own my life, and life really plays out the way I design it to be. But recently, I discovered that life really doesn't work like that. To a certain point, yes, I'm the one taking action and I'm in charge of the way my life plays out, but I'm not in charge of how the world reacts to me, just like how the person who commented really didn't enjoy my abstract artwork. So I think this series of spiritual abstract artworks really helped me express the way I redefine the order in which I was navigating myself through this world. So this series really did feed my soul, but I felt like there was more I could do. Not just connecting with myself, but finding a way to connect with others as well. And this brings us to my most recent series of fashion-inspired abstracts. Like I said, this is a more recent development, and I am so excited to share more of these with you guys. So I've always had a love for fashion since I was very young. I grew up watching Jen Im and her thrift hauls all throughout middle school, and I was often complimented about my outfits since I was very young. I always thought of fashion as another means of self-expression, and I just really love mixing and matching color, forms, and shapes to express yourself. And I thought, could there be a better sweet spot than this, where I could bring in all the lessons I've learned throughout my art journey, mix it all together, and now connect with a specific group of people who share a love for art, fashion, self-expression, and just creativity in general. This is a sneak peek. This is not finished. It is very much still a work in progress, but this is an example, and here are some sneak peeks of my finished pieces of this collection. So all in all, I disagree that my abstract art pieces are just throwing around paint. I really do believe that it's a culmination of my art journey, and it's far from just mindless action. And if you've made it this far, Thank you and welcome. It probably means that you resonated with my story and my artwork, and I would love to hear about your stories and your opinions as well. So let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree that abstract art is just throwing around paint. And if you have personal stories about your own art journey or any sort of creative journey, I would love to hear that, so please leave it in the comments. I look forward to sharing more artworks and more stories with you guys here on YouTube. And once again, I'll have a link to my Etsy shop down below with a link to a 15% discount code. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.